Over the weekend, a former prime minister of Ukraine called on his nation to investigate Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, and his role on the board of a Ukrainian gas company.
Yep, the former prime minister saying an investigation is needed, quote, so that the I's can be dotted and the T's can be crossed. So what could an investigation find at this point?
Our next guest spent 3 years investigating the Biden's business dealings in Ukraine and China. Author of Secret Empires, Peter Schweizer, joins us right now from Tallahassee. Peter, good morning to you.
Good morning.
We got a statement from the Biden camp. They said that regarding this guy's statement, a universally discredited conspiracy theory. What do you say about what he had to say?
I think that the Ukrainian officials are right, and Joe Biden, is dismissing that as a conspiracy theory. What's a conspiracy theory about his son getting $83,000 a month? We have the banking records about his son joining this corrupt board where he had no background and expertise in the country, and his son doing the same thing in China. There's no conspiracy theory here. It's the oldest game in politics, which is follow the money and self-enrichment, and Joe Biden just wants these issues to go away.
So now you have, how do you explain Lusenko, the former prosecutor there, who got dismissed when the election happened and the comedian took over? He's saying that there was no more investigation needed to be done.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is the problem. You've got prosecutors and Ukrainian officials saying contradictory things. What I've called for from the beginning is our Department of Justice ought to work with Ukrainian prosecutors to figure out precisely what was Hunter Biden being paid for. He had no background in natural gas or energy, no background in Ukraine, and yet he's being paid this large sum of money. So the question is why? And this occurred, by the way, while Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, was appointed by Barack Obama as point person on policy toward Ukraine. That happened just 2 months before Hunter Biden got this sweetheart deal. You have a similar thing going on in China. So I think people have a right to know how precisely was the Biden family enriched, and what did Hunter Biden give them in return? He wasn't being paid for his expertise. He was being paid for something, and I think we have a right to know what that something is.
Well, Peter, you know that our correspondent asked Joe Biden, I think about 10 days ago, how often have you spoken to your son about your overseas business dealings, about his business dealings? And he said, I've never talked to him about it.
Yeah, that's a pretty remarkable statement. The problem is he's been contradicted by his own son, Hunter, who said that he talked to his father about the Burisma deal in Ukraine. And Joe Biden's statement is also contradicted by Hunter Biden's Chinese partners, who told a reporter that, in fact, when they took that now infamous trip on Air Force Two to Beijing, China, just before Hunter closed his billion-dollar-plus deal, Chinese company officials say they were introduced to Vice President Biden by Hunter Biden. So, how that happened without them discussing the business dealings, it's an absurd stretch. And I think what Joe Biden needs to do is come clean about this stuff. The old ways of sort of just obscuring are not going to work here. This is why we need to have an investigation.
George Stephanopoulos said Sunday that the whole China link has been debunked. What do you say?
It's not true. In fact, we're releasing the documents today. What you're seeing in the media with George Stephanopoulos and also with the Washington Post is they're taking the Biden line hook, line, and sinker. Number one, we're releasing documents. Hunter Biden was on the board of directors of this Chinese company that had $1.5 billion. We're releasing documents related to that $1.5 billion. We're also releasing documents that explain what the American partners, that would be Hunter Biden and his business partners, what their role was. And their role was the Chinese wanted to take advantage of their quote-unquote networks, end quote, in the United States. Now, what networks are they talking about? These gentlemen are not titans on Wall Street. I think we know what networks they're talking about. And the Chinese were very explicit as to why they struck up this partnership with Rosemont Seneca Partners, this sort of small investment firm that very few people had heard of that just happened to be headed up by the vice president's son.
Interesting stuff. We'll await those documents that you're going to release regarding China. Peter Schweizer, author of Secret Empires and president of the Government Accountability Institute.